I'm Dr. Ellen Langer. For most of our lives, we are taught to believe that aging is a one-way street, that time passes, the body weakens, and decline is inevitable. We are told this so often that we rarely question it. But what if much of what we call aging is not driven by biology alone, but by belief? What if the way you think about your age is quietly shaping how your body functions every single day? For over 4 decades, my work in psychology has focused on one powerful idea. The mind is not a passive observer of the body, it is an active participant. We do not merely respond to the world as it is, we respond to the world as we believe it to be, and those beliefs can change our health, our energy, and even how old we become. In one of my most well-known studies, we placed older men in an environment designed to mirror their younger years. They spoke as if they were younger, acted as if they were younger, and immersed themselves in a mindset of vitality rather than decline. What happened was not symbolic. Their posture improved, their vision sharpened, their strength increased. These were not feelings, they were measurable physical changes. The body listened to the mind. This research challenges a deeply rooted assumption that aging is something that simply happens to us. Instead, it suggests that aging is something we actively participate in moment by moment through our expectations, labels, and habits of thought. When we tell ourselves, "I'm too old for this," the body often agrees. When we remain psychologically flexible and engaged, the body responds with resilience. Much of what limits us comes from mindless thinking, rigid categories like young and old, possible and impossible. When we live mindfully, when we pay attention to new information instead of relying on old assumptions, we create space for change. Mindfulness is not about meditation alone. It is about noticing differences, noticing possibilities, noticing that today does not have to be a repeat of yesterday. Thinking younger does not mean denying reality or pretending you are someone you are not. It means refusing to let a number dictate your capacity for growth, curiosity, and movement. It means engaging fully with life rather than stepping back because society expects you to slow down. When you remain mentally active, flexible, and open, your body follows. Aging, then, is not just a biological process, it is a psychological experience, and psychological experiences are remarkably responsive to change. When we shift how we think, how we speak about ourselves, and how we interpret our abilities, we often discover that the limits we accepted were never as fixed as we believed. Most people believe that aging begins in the body, in the joints that stiffen, the muscles that weaken, the energy that slowly fades. But long before the body changes, something else happens first. A quiet decision is made in the mind, a belief settles in, a story repeats itself so often that it feels like truth, and once that story is accepted, the body follows it with remarkable loyalty. From a psychological perspective, the mind is not reacting to age, it is creating the experience of age. Every expectation you hold about what getting older means sends instructions to your nervous system. When you expect decline, your attention narrows. You move less. You notice weakness more than strength, and your body adapts to those expectations, not because it must, but because it believes it should. Consider how often people say, "I can't do that anymore," without testing whether it's true. The phrase itself becomes a command. The brain hears limitation and adjusts posture, balance, and effort accordingly. Over time, these micro adjustments accumulate into real physical change. What looks like biological aging is often the result of psychological surrender. Research repeatedly shows that when people are placed in environments that encourage them to think and behave as younger versions of themselves, their bodies respond in measurable ways. Strength improves, flexibility increases, even sensory abilities sharpen. These outcomes are not illusions or placebo effects. They are evidence that the body is deeply responsive to mindset. The mind is not following the body's decline. The body is responding to the mind's expectations. Your body does not know your age. It knows only what you consistently signal to it. If you signal caution, withdrawal, and inevitability, the body complies. If you signal engagement, curiosity, and capability, the body reorganizes itself around those signals. This is not motivation, it is mechanism. When people think younger, they move differently. Their movements are less guarded, their attention more outward, their posture more upright. These changes alter circulation, muscle activation, and balance without conscious effort. The mind creates a context, and the body adapts to fit it. This is why two people of the same age can appear decades apart in vitality. They are living inside different psychological frameworks. One of the most damaging assumptions about aging is that decline is automatic. Automation is the real enemy. When life becomes predictable, repetitive, and unquestioned, the mind disengages. Disengagement accelerates aging far more than time itself. The moment you stop expecting growth, your system stops investing energy in it. Think younger does not mean denying limitations or pretending reality does not exist. It means refusing to exaggerate limitations that are not yet real. It means staying mentally flexible enough to let new information override old assumptions. Psychological flexibility is one of the strongest predictors of long-term health, yet it is rarely talked about outside academic research. The brain is designed to conserve energy. If you convince it that effort is no longer required, it scales back resources. Reaction time slows, motivation drops, strength decreases. But when you mentally place yourself in a context that demands engagement, the brain reallocates energy instantly. This shift happens faster than most physical training programs ever could. Aging is not something that happens to you. It is something you participate in. Every thought about your capacity is a vote. Every assumption about decline is a rehearsal. Over time, rehearsals become reality. People who maintain a younger mindset are not reckless or unrealistic. They are attentive. They notice differences instead of assuming sameness. They challenge habits instead of repeating them. They remain psychologically present. And presence is the foundation of vitality. Your body is not waiting for your birthday to decide what is possible. It is listening to your beliefs right now. The question is not how old you are, but what instructions you are giving your system today. Instructions of limitation or instructions of possibility. Most people assume that aging is driven by time, but time itself is not the real accelerator. What ages us fastest is repetition without awareness. When days blur together, when behaviors become automatic, and when experiences are filtered through habit rather than attention, the mind slowly disengages. This state of disengagement, not years, is what quietly drains vitality. Mindlessness is seductive because it feels efficient. The brain prefers shortcuts, categories, and routines. Once something becomes familiar, we stop noticing it, we stop questioning it, and when we stop noticing, we stop learning. The moment learning slows, psychological aging begins. The body follows soon after. Mindfulness, in contrast, keeps the mind active by design. It requires noticing differences instead of assuming sameness. It keeps the brain flexible, responsive, and engaged with the present moment. This is not a spiritual concept. It is a cognitive process. When the mind remains active, the nervous system stays adaptive. Adaptation is the opposite of aging. The body does not deteriorate because it is old. It deteriorates because it is underused in meaningful ways. Mindlessness leads to reduced movement, reduced curiosity, and reduced responsiveness. Over time, this reduction is mistaken for inevitable decline. In reality, it is a consequence of disengagement. Research consistently shows that when people are encouraged to be more mindful, to actively notice new aspects of familiar activities, their physical and cognitive performance improves, reaction times sharpen, balance improves, memory becomes more reliable. These changes do not come from effort or strain, they come from attention. Attention wakes the system up. When life is lived on autopilot, posture collapses, breathing becomes shallow, and movement becomes cautious. These are not conscious decisions. They are the body's response to a mind that expects little. Mindfulness reverses this process by signaling relevance. When something feels relevant, the brain allocates resources. When the brain allocates resources, the body responds with energy. One of the most damaging myths about aging is that slowing down is wise. In reality, mindless slowing down accelerates decline. Mindful engagement, however, allows people to pace themselves without withdrawing from life. There is a profound difference between rest and disengagement. Rest restores. Disengagement erodes. Youthfulness is not about speed or strength, it is about responsiveness. A mindful mind responds to change. A mindless mind resists it. Resistance creates rigidity, and rigidity is what we label as aging. Mindfulness also disrupts the self-fulfilling prophecies of age. When people expect memory loss, they pay less attention. When attention drops, memory worsens. The decline then appears to confirm the belief, even though the belief created the condition. Mindfulness interrupts this loop by restoring attention at the source. Even small acts of awareness can produce disproportionate effects. Noticing a new route during a walk, changing how a task is performed, engaging in unfamiliar conversations, these shifts keep the brain from defaulting to old patterns. The brain thrives on novelty, and novelty signals life. A mind that stays curious stays young because curiosity demands presence. Presence activates sensory systems, motor systems, and emotional regulation simultaneously. This integrated activation strengthens the entire system. Aging, by contrast, is characterized by fragmentation, less coordination, less engagement, less adaptability. The most powerful hook is this: you do not age because you repeat years. You age because you repeat days without noticing them. Mindfulness breaks repetition. It reintroduces choice where habit once ruled. People who remain mindful do not deny aging, they redefine it. They stay mentally active not by doing more, but by paying attention differently. And when attention changes, everything else follows: posture, energy, confidence, and health. The body listens closely to how awake the mind is. When the mind is alert, flexible, and engaged, the body behaves as if it is younger, not because time has reversed, but because disengagement has been replaced with awareness. One of the most powerful limitations people place on themselves is not physical, but social. It is the quiet agreement to behave the way their age is expected to behave. Over time, this agreement becomes invisible. People stop asking what they can do and start asking what they are allowed to do, and that shift changes everything. From early childhood, we are trained to associate age with rules. Certain behaviors are praised at one stage of life and discouraged at another. Curiosity becomes impractical. Play becomes immature. Ambition becomes unrealistic. These labels do not reflect biology. They reflect expectations. And once internalized, they shape behavior more powerfully than any physical limitation ever could. Here is the hook most people never question. The body does not deteriorate because of age. It deteriorates because of reduced challenge. When you stop asking your system to adapt, it stops adapting. Muscles weaken not because of birthdays, but because they are no longer invited to participate fully. The same is true for confidence, coordination, and resilience. Acting your age often means acting cautiously, predictably, and conservatively. While caution has its place, chronic caution signals threat to the nervous system. When the brain perceives threat, it prioritizes protection over growth. Movement becomes restricted. Risk-taking disappears. Exploration shuts down. Over time, protection masquerades as wisdom, but the cost is vitality. Acting your potential sends a very different signal. It tells the brain that growth is still relevant. It tells the nervous system that adaptation is still required. This does not mean reckless behavior or ignoring limitations. It means refusing to preemptively surrender capabilities that have not been tested. The most dangerous phrase associated with aging is, "at my age." Those three words shut down possibility before evidence appears. They bypass curiosity and replace it with assumption. The brain hears finality and adjusts accordingly. Energy drops, motivation contracts, effort feels heavier. None of this happens because of age itself. It happens because the mind has closed the case. Potential is not age dependent, it is attention dependent. When people believe they are still capable of learning, adapting, and contributing, their behavior reflects that belief. They move with intention, they engage socially, they remain cognitively flexible. These behaviors create a feedback loop that sustains health. Research shows that environments which encourage older individuals to take on meaningful roles associated with competence rather than decline, produce measurable improvements in performance and well-being. When people are treated as capable, they behave as capable. When they behave as capable, their bodies respond with strength. Acting your potential also reshapes identity. Identity is not fixed, it is reinforced through action. Each time someone chooses challenge over retreat, they reinforce an identity of capability. Each time they avoid engagement because of age, they reinforce an identity of limitation. Over time, identity becomes embodied. Decline is often rehearsed long before it is experienced. People mentally rehearse fragility, dependency, and loss years in advance. These rehearsals prepare the body to comply. Acting your potential interrupts this rehearsal and replaces it with participation. Potential does not mean striving endlessly or proving worth. It means staying involved. It means continuing to make decisions, learn skills, and explore interests. Engagement keeps the nervous system calibrated for life. Withdrawal recalibrates it for decline. The moment someone stops asking, "What does my age allow?" and starts asking, "What does my capacity allow right now?" the trajectory shifts. Capacity is fluid. It responds to use. It expands when challenged and contracts when ignored. The body is remarkably adaptive, but it adapts to what is demanded of it. If the demand is minimal, the response will be minimal. If the demand includes growth, relevance, and engagement, the system responds accordingly. Acting your potential is not about defying age. It is about refusing to let age decide who you become. So the question is not how old you are, but how old you are being. Are you living according to outdated assumptions, or are you allowing yourself to be fully present, engaged, and alive? When you think younger, curious, capable, and open, you give your body permission to do the same. And in that space, longevity becomes not just about adding years to life, but adding life to years.